children, I welcome you all to CBSE 11th English Hornbill Lesson 2. We are not afraid to die if we can all be together. Written by Jordan Cook and Alan East. Children, this video is very apt for the students who want to learn all the terminology and understand the lesson very well. If you look at the video till the end and read the textbook once, you are done. So let's get started. This is about Gordon Cook and his family who took a trip from Plymouth to Amsterdam Island. And how was the voyage, sea voyage? How rough was the sea and how did they overcome it? They wanted to duplicate the James Cook round the world sea voyage. Let us see what happens on the way in the expedition. This is the lesson all about. So it is explained with narration, good pictures and easy language, and it is an opportunity to learn the terminologies of related to water and ship. Meanings: Horing our seafarer skills means the author and his wife were learning the skills of boat, how to maintain the boat, how to tackle the boat, what to do in rough seas in the British waters. And the pinpricks in the vast sea, that means in the vast sea, if you see small islands here and there, they are called pinpricks, very small. This is a facial expression. Then ominous silence, that means an unpleasant or threatening silence before something bad is going to happen. Tousle head, this means disarranged head. Mayday calls, as we say hello. So mayday call is a word which is used in ships and planes as a life-threatening emergency signal. It is a word from French which means help me. It's a distress call. And next, before going into the lesson, let us know some parts of the boat. The front part of the boat is called bow, as the shape shows, B-O-W, bow, and from the middle to the tail it is called the stern. This part is called the stern, S-T-E-R-N, stern. And next, the wooden part is called the hull, and rudder helps for the diverting the water and help for steering. And next, deck is a plain platform where people can stand, and storm jib is a canvas which is used during the storm. And the mast is a central pole in the center of the boat which maintains the gravity, and it's a main mast. And next comes the cockpit where the captain works, and the boom is the main sail's bottom part where it is a rod, it's a iron rod. Next, if you see the picture, you know what is happening. On the surface of the water, a piece of wood shaped like a slice of pie is left with a long rope with equal knots in distance. This is called knot. One knot is equal to 1 nautical mile per hour. So it is 1.15 miles per hour. This is used to measure the speed of the ship. And next is a life jacket. It helps us to float on the water during emergencies. And next is the steering. Steering is something we control the ship, give the direction to the ship. And this is called hand pump. Hand pump can be operated manually or electrically to pump out water from one place to another. And this is called anchor. It's a very heavy object which is dropped into the water. It is connected by chains or cables or even rope. Why? Typically it will touch the sea bed and helps the boat not to crash or wrench in the harsh storm or wave and float on the water. The next one is a sextant. Is an instrument used to measure the angles, the distance between and the nearest island or the land piece. And next, James Cook, we cannot forget, he is a British naval captain, navigator and explorer who had done 3 expeditions in Pacific Ocean. His first expedition was round the world sea voyage. From Plymouth, he entered the Atlantic Ocean, and toward the South America, he entered the Pacific Ocean and the Tahiti Islands, and then he entered Australia. From there, Indian Ocean and the Cape Town in South Africa, and then he came back to Plymouth. This is how he did an expedition all around the world, and he is known for this record. And so a man, 37-year-old businessman, and his wife Mary had a long-lasting wish of an adventurous life, and they wanted to copy the round-the-world voyage which the Captain James Cook had made 200 years ago. So in July 1976, they were all set, and the family consisted of Suzanne, a 7-year-old girl, and Jonathan, their son, 6 years old. And how did they start? They also started from Plymouth, England, and then they reached Amsterdam Island. They couldn't reach Australia because of the atrocious waves. And let's see what are the parts of the world: Atlantic Ocean and the Africa, India, Indian Ocean, USA, South America, Australia, Antarctica. So they started from Plymouth. It was a very peaceful journey, west coast of Africa. They reached south of Africa, which is Cape Town, and then started from there. They went to the west of Africa, so east of Africa towards the Indian Ocean, but they couldn't make up. So let's see how they faced this challenge and a war with the nature and the gigantic waves, and how they were rescued. And so for the past 16 years, these couples were acquiring the skills of seafaring in the British waters. All the leisure time they spent in learning about the boat, the skills we need, how to tackle with the situations, storms, everything. So the family were in the boat called Wave Walker. They also built a boat called Wave Walker, which was 23-meter long and a 30-ton wooden hull beauty. It was a beautiful boat, and it was built by professionals and took a long time in fitting it, and also it was tested in the roughest weathers. And then they started from Plymouth, and the first leg, their plan was to go for 3 years around the world. So the first leg, that means the first stage of the plan, they started with the family, and 3 year was their plan of 105,000 kilometers, and they sailed down the west coast of Africa to Cape Town very peacefully and happy. It was an adventurous trip. Then what happened in Cape Town when they came? Yes, the Cape Town, they took an American Larry Vigil and the Swiss man Herb Siegler as their crewmen, because they are heading to the east to the southern Indian Ocean, which is the roughest seas. So on the second day from the Cape Town, when they went, there were strong winds. Strong gales means strong winds were blowing continuously, and the gale did not worry the author. Gordon Cook was worried about the waves. If it is like 15 meters as high as more than the height of the mast, that is the boat, then that would be a problem. And then the weather went through in the same way, and months passed, and in December 25th they found 3,500 kilometers east of Cape Town. So they were almost in Indian Ocean, and despite this atrocious weather, they had a wonderful holiday. Christmas they celebrated with no improvement in the weather, and they also celebrated the New Year. And soon after January 1st New Year, something was forthcoming for the worse. And so there was what they expected. There was at dawn after the New Year, January 1st, January 2nd, 3rd and 4th and 5th were the most horrible days of the journey, because the waves were gigantic and they were sailing on a very small stone jib, and still the ship had a very good speed of 8 knots. And see the gigantic wave coming. What happened then? At dawn, morning January 2nd, they could see a very gigantic wave approaching, and when the boat reached the top of the wave, they could see many huge waves rolling towards them and screaming, and the spraying water was so painful to the ears. So the only thing they could do to save themselves from this gigantic wave was to slow down the boat first. So they dropped the stone jib and lashed the mooring rope. They dropped the rope across the stone, and they tied all the ropes double times, and they went for a life raft drill, and also lifelines and oil skilled doomed life jackets and waited for the next wave. The first indication of impending disaster at night, they could see there was pin drop silence in the sea. The wind dropped, and immediately the sky was dark, and they felt there was an ominous silence. Ominous silence means something bad is going to happen. And the first, this is an impending disaster is going to happen. It was about 6 p.m. in the evening, and they saw a roar or a sound coming behind the ship, behind the boat. It looked like white in color. Was it a cloud? But no, with horror, the other realized that it was not a cloud, but it was a very big wave ever has seen. And it was horizontal and double the height of the other gigantic waves they have seen till now. Just imagine what would have happened. Just see the picture how the gigantic double the height of the gigantic wave, and the boat was merely a small thing in front of it. Yeah, a torrent of great green and water broke down the ship onto the ship, and the author's head smashed into the wheel, and he was flying in the air over the boat, and he fell into the deep waves outside the boat, and he was losing his consciousness, and he felt very peaceful and the approaching death. So there was a loud bang, and the boat splashed with this water. Is the author dead? He fell into the deep waves, gigantic waves out of the boat. What happened? Yeah, unexpectedly he got his consciousness and he popped out of the water, and he could see that the boat was nearly capsizing. The mast was almost horizontal. The mast is the long pole in the center of the boat. It was almost touching the sea, and he thought that the boat is going to capsize, that is going to, yes, completely, yes, it is going to slip into the water. Capsizing means inverted boat. Completely, if the boat is upside down, it's called capsizing. But surely, did it happen? No. Then another wave hurled in the opposite direction, and it set the boat right. And he took his lifeline and he grabbed the guard rails and he sailed to the air to the wave walker's main boom. The mast is the main mast in the center. So the mast had a very boom. He caught the boom, and then he was tossed like a rag doll. Rag means an old piece of cloth. If you make a doll, it looks like a rag doll. He was really flying like a kite there, and his left ribs were cramped. His mouth was full of blood and broken teeth. And now he found the steering wheel, and he took the control of the boat, and then he was ready for the next wave to come on. And immediately he could see there was water everywhere, and the ship had water below, and he did not dare to leave the steering wheel, and go and see what was happening or investigate, because that would really cause troubles. Immediately, who came up through the hatch? Yeah, Mary appeared and said, we are sinking, the decks are smashed, we are full of water. And the author immediately asked Mary to take control of the wheel, and he went into the hatch and saw that Larry and Herb, the two crewmen, were pumping water from the boat like madmen. And I could see the broken timber, that is the wood, the hull, a part of the hull was broken on the side, and the whole starboard was bulged inside. It was bulged inside, not outside. And the clothes, the crockery, tins, toys, everything got deep into the water and floating, and he could see the deep flying. And soon after, he half swam and half he crawled into the children's cabin, and he asked the children, are you right? And up in the upper bunk, can you see the picture? That's the bunk, bed one upon the other, and his hurt, Suzanne's hurt was bulged because of the bump she had above her eyes, and he thought this is not the time to worry about the bulge, because something else was worrying him to get out of this situation. After finding a hammer and a screw and a canvas, he struggled back on deck, and with the starboard bashed open, we were taking water with each wave that broke us. And he thought, if I didn't repair it, we'll surely sink. The boat will surely sink down. And he started to manage and stretch the canvas and secure waterproof hatch. And he covered all the holes that were on the starboard on the side of the boat, and still the water was blowing, streaming below. And now he wanted, almost it was deflected over the side. And more problems arose when he started to use the hand pump. All the waste materials which was floating on the water got inside the pump, and the pump was not working. And immediately he took the electric pump, but there was a short circuit and all the pumps were out of order, and the water level was rising in a very threatening manner. So he jumped on the deck on the top of the boat, and he took for the spare hand pump, but they were destroyed by the gigantic whale, along with the foresail, the jib, the dingles, and the main anchor was also damaged. Now he had no other way, but he had to think very quickly, and he remembered that there was an electric pump under the chart room floor. He connected the pipe to the outside pipe, and thankfully it worked, and whole water from inside they were able to pump it out of the boat. And next, the night was very slow. They were bitterly in the cold, and they were staring. Mary was steering the wheel, and he was working on the radio, and they were pumping the water continuously the whole day. And he was on the radio waiting for the replies of Mayday call. Mayday, you know what is Mayday? It's a term used for a signal, life-threatening emergency, but none replied. Why not? Because they are in some remote corner of the world. That's what the other thought. He couldn't get connected to anybody, so the situation was going out of control. But still, one pump was working. And on the other side, Suzanne's head has swollen alarmingly, and she has enormous black eyes on both, and there was a deep cut on the arm. And the father asked, is there anything else? But Suzanne said, don't worry about me. It's not, you're trying to save us all, so don't. And soon he realized that by morning, Jan 3rd, after the Jan 2nd, the disastrous day, the Jan 3rd, he was pumping the water level, and it was sufficiently under control, because now the people take a turn. The people in the boat, they took turns, 2 hours. The rest they took in rotations and working on pumping the water out. And there was a tremendous leak somewhere below the water line. So and on checking that, he found that the boat was completely smashed to the neel, and it was only moving because of some cabinets that were built under the deck. It was only standing because of the few cupboards that are inside the boat. Because of that, it is all other part is being destroyed. That's what he came to know about seeing the condition of the boat. And now he said that we have survived 15 hours since the wave have hit on Jan 2nd, but the wave walker will not make it up to the Australia because the condition is worse. The boat is being completely gone. So he quickly checked the charts and calculated whether there are some small islands which are a few hundred kilometers to the east, and one of them was island of Amsterdam, which is a French scientific base. So his hope was really high that to find the islands which is in the Indian Ocean, in Amsterdam Island, unless the wind and the sea gave hand in hand to us. Otherwise, the chances of reaching the island also is very slim. And the great upsetting thing was the auxiliary, the extra engine was also out of action because it was destroyed in the wind. Now on Jan 4th, after the 2 days, after 36 hours of continuous pumping, we reached centimeters of water. There was only little water in the boat, but they had to keep a pace of check on the water which is leaking in, and so they could not sail on the main mast. What is main mast? The boat has a center part, a pole, and a canvas attached, that is called the mainmast. But if they set the mainmast, the boat would break into two pieces. They couldn't think of sailing the boat in the normal way because the pressure will really pull the damaged section into two parts, and so they had to do something else. So quickly he hoisted the storm jib, the extra jib that they had, and then he was heading, I thought, to the two islands. Then Mary, they were really tired and hungry, and Mary found some corned beef and some cracked biscuits. They ate it after almost 2 days. And at night again at 4 o'clock, the black clouds were building up, and there was no relief for them because they were waiting for another, yes, another wind or the waves coming in. Within the hour, the wind was back to 40 knots. Again, the wind started its force, and the sea was getting higher and higher. The weather continued to deteriorate throughout the night, but they escaped from the Jan 4th night, and they approached the morning of dawn of Jan 5th. But the situation was really hopeless and bad still. And what happened is, he immediately went to his children to comfort the situation, or and to give moral support and emotional support. But he said, "Daddy, are we going to die?" Jonathan asked, and Jonathan tried to assure him that no, we are not. But Jonathan said, if we can all be together, I'm not afraid to die. You, me, mommy, and see. So he was so confidently saying that, he was giving so much motivation that nothing will happen to us, and if we die also, I'm happy to die along with my family. So do you think all the family is going to die or get killed in these violent and aggressive gigantic waves? No. But he couldn't find any words to respond to his children's relieving words. But he thought he had to fight anyway with the sea. So he came up with so many ideas that he had to figure it out to come out of this. So he decided to heave to. What is heave to? Heave to is a process of not using the mainsail. In the center of the boat, we have a long pole and the canvas, which is completely destroyed. He is not giving any pressure to the center of the boat because it's completely, yes, not working. It's broken, and if you give pressure in the center, it will break into two pieces. The boat will break. So he gave pressure on the front bow. So you can see the picture in the blue. The wind is blowing in the front storm jib. So the rudder will try to turn the boat in the wind. So this is how they try to maintain the boat moving on the water or floating on the water. And instead, the anchor was also completely, the anchor which is dropped on the seabed to maintain the boat from getting flown away by the gigantic waves. The anchor is damaged. So he came up with his improvised sea anchor. That is, he took a heavy nylon rope, and then he tied it to a 22-liter plastic barrels of paraffin, and he pulled it into the sea so that the boat will not be carried away by the heavy wind. And that evening, Mary and the author Jordan Cook sat together thinking that will it be the end of their life. But still, so many days they were on sea, and God has really helped them without any damage. And even then, the Wave Walker is completely damaged. They are still alive. Now he thought, but Wave Walker rode on the storm, and by the morning of Jan 6th, they have reached Jan 6th. And now the wind was bit easing, and he started to read on the sextant. It's an instrument I showed in the beginning. And in the chart room, he found some wind speeds, the drift and the currents to calculate the position of the boat in the Pacific Ocean, and to find the two nearest islands where he can find a stop and repair the boat, because it's impossible to go to Australia because the Wave Walker was completely destroyed. And then he could figure out something, a 65-kilometer wide island nearby. And will it come true? And in the meantime, Suzanne came there and gave him a card. And then he checked and rechecked the calculation, because he completely lost the main compass, and all the spare that he has is not correct variations. But still he used his guessings in order to come up with, figure out where they are, and estimated what would be the westerly currents in the Indian Ocean and how it will affect the sea. And then he ordered, about 2 p.m. on say January 6th, he told Larry to turn the boat to the 180-degree course, and he said if we are lucky by 5 p.m. we'll find the island, that is the islands of Amsterdam. And he was very upset, and with heavy heart he went to his bunk and he dozed off. He was sleeping, and suddenly he got up at 6 p.m. and he thought, did we miss the island? We are supposed to reach the island by 6, before 6, and if we cannot find the island, we cannot face the westerly winds, now further forthcoming westerly winds in the Indian Ocean. And thinking so at 6 p.m. with heavy heart, and suddenly what happened? At the moment, in the bunk came a tousled hair, the Jonathan, his son, and right behind was Suzanne. And Jonathan said, give me a hug, Daddy, you are the best daddy in the world. And Suzanne said, yeah, you are. But the other was not in good high spirits. He said, this is not the time, son. Then Suzanne said, we have found the island, you are the best, you found out. It is right in front of us, they told together. It is as big as a battleship. Really, he couldn't believe what he heard, and he rushed onto the deck. Deck means the top of the boat, and gazed. He was looking with relief at the stark outline. From far he could see the outline of islands of Amsterdam. It is bit piece of rocky land with little vegetations, and he felt that this is the most beautiful island in the world. Why? Because now they were in the life and death situation, and this island, though it is a volcanic rocked island, it appeared to be the most beautiful island in the world to him. And so they anchored the ship offshore for the night, and the next morning he saw that around 28 inhabitants, people living in the island, came, surrounded them and cheered them and helped them upshore. And he was really happy that God's grace has really saved them from being killed or drowned in the water or by the gigantic water, and even the boat didn't crush and break into pieces. So now on land he is the other garden cook, and feet on the land his thoughts were full of Larry and Herbie, the two crewmen who took everything cheerfully and optimistic, and with positivity they worked without complaining. And Mary was working very hard day and night at the wheel steering, and they followed all his instructions. And mostly their children, the 7-year-old girl who was badly had a head injury, and it took nearly 6 minor operations to recover the blood clot between the skin and the skull. And the 6-year-old Jonathan, who was fantastic, and he said he is not afraid to die if he is along with his family in the midst of the sea. So this is a story of brave journey, adventurous journey, and the human behavior of taking risks and adventure. And it is also reflects on the perseverance quality, and to be calm and composed in time of danger, to face the situation. So read the lesson. I think you should have understood it very well. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.